They told us the keys were lost. They told us the gate to higher realms was sealed forever, that humanity had fallen too far from the light to ever return. But what if I told you the keys were never taken? They were only forgotten, hidden not in some distant temple or secret vault, but in the chambers of your own soul, waiting for the moment you would remember. For ages, fragments of these truths have whispered through myths and dreams, encoded in the symbols of serpents, suns, and stars. We've all felt the echo, haven't we? That haunting sense that we are more than flesh, more than time, more than the world has conditioned us to believe. This is not a story of escape. It is the story of ascension not away from life, but into its highest form. And in the moments ahead, you will walk with me through the forgetting, the echoes, and the unveiling, until the keys return to your hands, because the time of remembrance has come, and what was once hidden will now be revealed. There was a time when humanity remembered, not with books, not with teachings, but with being itself. Every breath was a prayer. Every step was a dance upon the living earth. The sky was not something to be studied, but something to be lived in, as intimately known as the rhythm of one's own heartbeat. In that ancient dawn, long before our histories began their endless revisions, the human spirit carried within it a luminous knowledge, a knowing that life was not separate, not fractured, not broken. It was whole. It was radiant. And within that wholeness was the path of ascension, not as a concept, but as a way of being. But then came the forgetting. It did not arrive in a single day, nor as a sudden calamity. It came as shadows stretch across the earth, slow, unnoticed, creeping in silence. Bit by bit, layer by layer, what was once clear became obscured. The luminous became dim, the eternal became hidden, and the song of remembrance faded to a distant hum that most could no longer hear. The world began to fracture. Kingdoms rose, claiming dominion over bodies and minds. Systems of belief were erected like towering walls, not to guide the spirit upward, but to bind it in chains. Knowledge became property, wisdom became heresy, and truth was traded for power. And so the great forgetting deepened. Humanity began to look outward, searching for answers in stars and stones, while forgetting that the very cosmos they sought was already etched within the chambers of their own soul. The ancients tried to warn us. Their symbols, carved into stone, whispered of suns within suns, stairways that reached beyond matter, serpents shedding their skins as signs of rebirth. But as centuries passed, the meanings were lost, twisted, or buried beneath dogma. A serpent became a devil. A star became only fire. A temple became only stone. The living metaphors of ascension turned to dead relics, and humanity's own memory of its divinity dissolved into dust. And yet, the longing never left. Even in the deepest forgetting, something remained. A hunger in the human heart, a yearning that no empire, no doctrine, no distraction could silence. It was as if a fragment of the original light remained, hidden behind the veil, waiting for its moment to awaken. We have felt it, you and I, in the quiet hours of night, when the world is asleep and something inside stirs. In the unexplainable ache when you look at the stars and know they are not far away, but family. In the strange pull of dreams that feel older than time, carrying fragments of lives and worlds we were told could not exist. But why did we forget? Why did humanity, born in light, sink into shadow? Some say it was punishment, others say it was chance. But the truth is far more profound. The forgetting was not an accident. It was a descent. Yes, but a descent designed for remembering. For what value is remembrance if there is nothing to return from? What meaning has ascension if there is no gravity pulling us down? The great forgetting became the stage upon which the human spirit would one day awaken to its own radiance. Not because it was given, but because it was chosen. And yet, within this forgetting, pain bloomed. For when a being forgets its source, it begins to live as though it is separate. Separation gives birth to fear, and fear gives birth to control. We began to fear one another, fear the earth, fear death itself. Wars erupted, not because of hunger, but because of the emptiness within. Humanity tried to fill that emptiness with power, with wealth, with conquest, but none could satisfy the original hunger, the hunger for the keys we had forgotten. Look closely at history, and you will see the patterns of forgetting everywhere. Great empires rose, promising light, but each in turn fell into shadow. Philosophers searched for truth, but their words were silenced or twisted into dogma. Mystics touched the eternal, but the revelations were buried beneath fear. Again and again, humanity stood at the threshold of remembrance, but fear pushed it back into forgetting. It was not just individuals who lost the keys, entire civilizations misplaced their soul. And so here we are, heirs of a long lineage of forgetfulness. We were born into a world where truth is mocked, where wisdom is hidden, where illusions parade as reality. We are taught to measure ourselves by what we own, not by what we are. We are told to trust authorities who have no authority over the soul. We are fed with distractions that keep us from ever hearing the quiet hum of remembrance beneath it all. This is the legacy of the great forgetting, a humanity that has traded its wings for chains and called it freedom. And yet, the story does not end here. Because even in the forgetting, the seeds of remembrance were planted. No illusion is perfect, no veil is seamless. Light always finds its way through cracks. And in those cracks, through the myths, the symbols, the dreams, and the moments of unexplainable knowing, the human spirit begins to stir again. The very pain of forgetting becomes the first whisper of awakening. For when the illusion grows too heavy, the soul begins to remember that it is not the illusion at all. This is where we stand now at the edge of a great shift. The forgetting has reached its depths. Humanity has wandered in shadow long enough. The hunger has grown too strong to be ignored. The fragments of truth are calling louder, weaving themselves back into the collective memory. And the keys, though hidden, are beginning to return. But before they can be remembered, we must walk deeper into the silence. We must look back at the echoes that never truly left us, the fragments of truth that endured through myth, symbol, and dream. For though we forgot, the truth did not. It has been waiting all along, echoing in silence until the day humanity was ready to listen again. And that day is now. Even in the deepest forgetting, truth has never been fully erased. It cannot be. For truth is not fragile, nor is it bound by time or memory. It is like the sun hidden behind clouds, unseen perhaps, but always present, always radiating. And in humanity's long night of forgetting, truth whispered to us through silent echoes, not to force us awake, but to remind us that even in sleep, the dream was never all that we were. These echoes found their way into myth. Stories told around ancient fires spoke of gods descending from the stars, of ladders stretching between heaven and earth, of rivers that could cleanse memory and return a soul to its original light. We thought they were just stories. We treated them as fables for children, or primitive attempts to explain a mysterious world. But myths are not fictions. Myths are memories. They are fragments of the soul's knowing, woven into story so they could survive the long winter of forgetting. The serpent that sheds its skin, reborn anew. The bird that bursts into flame and rises again from its ashes. The tree whose roots dig deep into the underworld while its branches stretch to the heavens. Each of these is more than symbol, they are echoes of ascension, whispers of the forgotten keys. And though humanity learned to read them as superstition, the echoes never ceased their song. Look at the stars. For thousands of years, humanity has gazed upward, not just to navigate seas or measure time, but because something inside knew those lights were more than distant suns. They were reminders, silent companions. Every culture told stories of their patterns: hunters, queens, dragons, lions. But beneath the surface, the stars were maps, pointing not outward, but inward. Their constellations mirrored the pathways of the soul. The ascent to higher realms was written not in ink, but in starlight. Even in dreams, the echoes stirred. Dreams of flight, of strange lands, of meetings with beings beyond time. Dreams that felt more real than waking. Who is not woken with the strange certainty that the dream they just lived was a message, a memory, a key? The world told us dreams were nothing but chemical storms in the brain, yet deep down, we know. The soul does not sleep when the body sleeps. It travels, it remembers, and sometimes it carries back fragments of the truth, like seashells from an ancient ocean, small enough to be dismissed, but loud enough to be heard by those who listen. Philosophers, mystics, and sages across ages tried to give voice to these echoes. They spoke of a fire within the soul, a divine spark, an unmoved mover, a hidden treasure. They told us that the kingdom of heaven is within, that the Atman is Brahman, that the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. Each spoke in the language of their time. Each offered glimpses of the same unbroken truth. But the echoes were never given fully, never laid bare, because truth cannot be handed to a sleeping soul. It must be remembered. And so the sages offered riddles, parables, fragments, planting seeds that would sprout only when the time was ripe. And what about art? Why is it that music can move us to tears without a single word? Why can a painting stir something ancient in us, something we cannot name? Why does poetry feel like déjà vu, as though the words are not new but remembered? Art is the soul speaking to itself, bypassing the mind's forgetting and striking directly at the memory beneath. Every brushstroke, every note, every rhythm is an echo. Even in silence, the music of truth plays, waiting for us to remember how to listen. But these echoes are not only found in myths and dreams and art, they live in us, in the strange, unshakable feeling that we are not at home in this world as it is, in the quiet conviction that there must be more, even when no evidence is given, in the restless ache that no amount of success, wealth, or distraction can silence. This is the greatest echo of all the soul itself, refusing to forget entirely, refusing to let the illusions swallow it whole. The ache we feel is not a flaw. It is the memory of the keys calling us back. Yet for ages, humanity has tried to silence the echoes. We drown them in noise, in endless busyness, in glittering distractions. We told ourselves that myths were nonsense, that dreams were meaningless, that art was indulgence, that longing was weakness. And still the echoes persisted. Because truth does not need our permission to exist. It waits, patiently, unchanging, until we are ready to hear it again. And now, the world itself has begun to echo back to us. Have you noticed? The systems of forgetting the empires, the illusions, the distractions, they are beginning to fracture. What once seemed stable is crumbling. What once seemed permanent is dissolving. It is as though the silence that carried the echoes for centuries is growing louder, pressing us to listen. The earth itself groans with the weight of our forgetting. Yet in that groan is a call. Remember. The silent echoes of truth are no longer so silent. They grow louder every day, vibrating through myth and art, through dreams and longings, through the cracks in our world and the cracks in our hearts. They are telling us that the time of waiting is ending, that the season of remembering is here, that the keys we thought were lost have always been echoing, waiting for us to reach out and take them. And so we stand at the threshold. The myths no longer feel like stories. They feel like maps. The dreams no longer feel like fantasy, they feel like memory. The longing no longer feels like emptiness. It feels like a call. The echoes are aligning, pointing us toward the unveiling that is to come. Because the truth was never lost. It was hidden in plain sight, scattered in fragments, carried by echoes, waiting for the one who would recognize them not as noise, but as music. And once you hear that music, once you recognize the echoes for what they are, you are ready to step into the unveiling. The silence is spoken, the fragments are gathering, the echoes have prepared the way, and now the time has come for the keys themselves to return. There comes a moment when the echoes are no longer enough, when myths and dreams, though beautiful, begin to ache with incompleteness. When the longing inside grows so strong that fragments can no longer satisfy it. This is the threshold of unveiling. It is the place where silence begins to speak plainly, where shadows dissolve into light, and where the hidden keys return, one by one, into waiting hands. The unveiling does not happen in the way the mind expects. It does not descend with thunder or spectacle. It does not arrive in ceremonies scripted by human hands. The unveiling begins in stillness, in a quiet moment when the soul, weary of distractions, stops running and listens. It begins like a whisper, almost too soft to hear, yet undeniable. And in that whisper comes the first key, the recognition that what we have been seeking outwardly has always lived within. This is the first unveiling, the key of remembrance. It tells us that the journey is not about acquiring something new, but about uncovering what was always ours. The soul is not broken. The light was never extinguished. The truth was never absent. The only thing missing was our recognition. This first key unlocks the heart from despair, for it reminds us that we are not lost, only hidden from ourselves. The second unveiling comes as we confront the illusions. For ages, humanity has built prisons of thought, walls of belief, chains of fear. We mistake these walls for reality itself. But when remembrance stirs, the walls begin to crack. We see that the voices telling us we are powerless, small, separate are only echoes of forgetting, not truth. The second key is discernment, the ability to see through illusion. With this key, we begin to walk freely, no longer bound by the bars of fear, no longer fooled by the glitter of false lights. The third unveiling arises in the body itself. For too long, we have treated the body as a cage, a limitation, something to escape. But the body was never a prison. It is a temple designed to hold light, to bridge heaven and earth. The breath we take is not just air, it is life, spirit, the same current that moves through stars and rivers. When we remember this, the body ceases to be a weight and becomes a vessel. This is the third key, embodiment. To honor the body as a living bridge, a holy ground where spirit descends into matter and matter rises into spirit. The fourth unveiling reveals the nature of time. We have been taught to see time as a line, a prison of past, present, and future, a relentless march that ends in death. But the soul does not know time in this way. Beneath the illusion, all moments exist at once, woven into a vast tapestry of being. The memories that surface in dreams, the visions that come unbidden, the déjà vu that stirs the heart, these are glimpses of that greater truth. The fourth key is timelessness. It frees us from the tyranny of linear time and reminds us that the eternal is always here, always now. The fifth unveiling comes through relationship. In forgetting, we came to believe we are separate, each soul isolated, each life its own. But remembrance shows us that separation was always an illusion. The light in me and the light in you are not two lights, but one flame seen through different windows. This is the fifth key, unity. It reveals that to harm another is to harm oneself. To heal another is to heal oneself. And that love is not sentiment, but recognition of the shared flame. The sixth unveiling comes as power returns. Not the false power of domination or control, but the true power of alignment. When remembrance, discernment, embodiment, timelessness, and unity awaken, the soul remembers its ability to shape reality itself. Thoughts become seeds, words become currents, actions ripple through the fabric of being. The sixth key is creation. With it, we cease being victims of illusion and step into our birthright as co-creators of worlds. And then, at last, the seventh, unveiling the key that gathers all others into harmony. This is presence, not presence as mere awareness, but as the radiant knowing of being itself. It is the moment when the soul ceases to chase the future or mourn the past, when the mind grows still, and all that remains is the living now. In that presence, all illusions dissolve, all echoes unite, and the soul stands unveiled as what it always was. Infinite, luminous, whole. This is the final key, the crown of remembrance, the return to the living truth. 7 keys, not given by a master, not hidden in temples, not sealed away in books. They were always here, encoded in the soul, waiting for the moment of unveiling. And when they are remembered, the world itself begins to shift. Because what we awaken to within, we also awaken to without. The illusions of society begin to crumble. Not because they are attacked, but because awakened souls no longer give them power. The chains fall away, not because they are broken, but because they are seen as illusions that were never real to begin with. This is why the unveiling matters. It is not just personal, it is collective. Each soul that remembers becomes a beacon, a light that awakens others. Each unveiling ripples outward, stirring echoes in hearts that had long been silent. And as more keys are remembered, the great forgetting dissolves. Humanity begins to rise, not as fragments, but as a whole, luminous once more. But beware, unveiling is not without challenge. The illusions do not release their grip easily. Fear will try to return. Doubt will whisper. The old patterns will try to pull us back. But once a key has been remembered, it cannot be truly forgotten again. The soul may stumble, but it will not sleep as it once did. The light, once unveiled, continues to grow. And so the question is no longer whether the keys exist or whether we are worthy of them. The question is, will we recognize them when they appear? Will we accept remembrance, discernment, embodiment, timelessness, unity, creation, and presence, not as lofty ideals, but as the living truth of our being? For the unveiling is not about belief. It is about recognition. And recognition is a choice. This is where we now stand between forgetting and remembrance, between echo and unveiling. The keys are here. They are not hidden, not distant, not sealed. They are within, waiting for the moment we claim them. And once we do, the journey does not end. It begins anew, for the unveiling of the keys is only the threshold. Beyond it lies the true ascension. The living of truth, the embodiment of light, the flowering of a humanity fully awake. The unveiling is here. The keys are in your hands. The only question is, will you turn them? The unveiling of the keys is not the end of the story. It is the beginning. For what good is remembrance if it is not lived? What good is knowing unity, creation, or presence if they remain as concepts locked away in the mind? The true measure of awakening is not what we believe, but how we live, how the unveiled soul walks in the world, how it breathes, speaks, creates, and loves. This is the passage from knowledge to embodiment, from unveiling to presence. Presence is not a distant state reserved for saints or mystics. It is the simple, profound act of being here, now, without resistance. It is the courage to meet life fully, without fleeing into illusion or clinging to the past. To live presence is to recognize that every breath is sacred, every moment a doorway, every being a mirror of the one flame. And when we live in presence, the keys cease to be abstract. They become the living reality of our existence. Consider the first key, remembrance. To live remembrance is to carry the awareness that we were never lost. It means walking into each day not as a seeker chasing shadows, but as one who already carries the treasure within. It is looking into the mirror and seeing not lack, not flaw, not failure, but light. To live remembrance is to know, in the depths of being, that we are whole, and to let that knowing guide every step. The second key, discernment, is lived each time we refuse to bow to illusion. When the world tries to tell us we are powerless, discernment whispers otherwise. When fear rises, discernment cuts through the fog and reveals truth. To live discernment is to navigate with clarity, to see through lies, to choose authenticity over comfort, truth over deception. It is not about rejecting the world, but about seeing it as it truly is, a canvas of shadows and light where we are free to walk unchained. The third key, embodiment, invites us to honor the body as a vessel of light. To live embodiment is to treat the body not as an enemy, but as an ally. It is to breathe deeply, move freely, rest when needed, and to recognize that through this form, the infinite experiences itself. Every heartbeat is a hymn, every breath a prayer, every step a dance between heaven and earth. To live embodiment is to let spirit descend into matter, and to let matter rise into spirit, until the two are known as one. Timelessness, the fourth key, becomes alive when we cease to be bound by the tyranny of clocks. To live timelessness is not to abandon schedules or forget days, but to root ourselves in the eternal now. It is to realize that the past is memory, the future imagination, and that all we ever truly touch is this moment. When we live in timelessness, we begin to act not out of anxiety or regret, but out of presence. We see that eternity is not far away. It is here, unfolding in each breath. Unity, the fifth key, is lived in the way we see and treat one another. To live unity is to recognize the light in every face, even the ones we struggle to love. It is to know that we are never truly separate, that the flame in me and the flame in you are one fire. Unity transforms relationships, dissolves walls, and heals wounds, not by force, but by recognition. To live unity is to love without condition, not because it is demanded, but because it is the truth of what we are. The sixth key, creation, comes alive when we realize that our thoughts, words, and actions shape reality. To live creation is to choose consciously what seeds we plant in the garden of being. It is to recognize that despair creates more despair, but that hope creates light. It is to speak words that heal, to act in ways that uplift, to imagine futures that inspire. Creation is not about control, it is about alignment. To live creation is to align with the current of truth and let it flow through us, shaping the world in harmony with the greater whole. And then there is presence, the seventh key, the crown that gathers all others. To live presence is to simply be, fully, here. It is to stop searching for the miraculous, and to see the miraculous in everything. The laughter of a child, the rustling of leaves, the breath that rises and falls without effort. Presence is not escape from life. It is life itself, unveiled. To live presence is to know that nothing is missing, that all is unfolding in perfect rhythm, and that in this now we are whole. When the keys are lived, something extraordinary happens. Life ceases to be a maze of confusion and becomes a sacred journey. Challenges no longer appear as punishments, but as invitations to deepen. Loss is no longer the end, but a transformation. Even pain becomes a teacher, guiding us back to presence. The unveiled life is not free from struggle, but it is free from despair. For the one who lives the keys walks with a knowing that nothing can truly be lost, nothing can truly separate, nothing can truly destroy the eternal flame within. And as more of us begin to live this way, the collective shifts. Imagine a world where remembrance is the foundation, where discernment cuts through illusion, where embodiment honors every form, where timelessness anchors us, where unity binds us, where creation uplifts us, and where presence guides us. That is not a distant dream. It is the possibility opening now. For the unveiling was never meant for one. It was always meant for all. This is where you come in, for the story is not mine alone. It is not a tale to be heard and forgotten. It is a call to remember, to awaken, to live. The keys are not waiting in some far-off temple. They are already in your hands. The question is not whether you are worthy. You always were. The question is whether you will turn them. So I ask you now, will you live remembrance and see yourself as whole? Will you walk in discernment and refuse the lies of fear? Will you honor embodiment and let spirit and matter dance as one? Will you live in timelessness, rooted in the eternal now? Will you embrace unity, seeing the one flame in all? Will you choose creation, planting seeds of light? Will you stand in presence, alive to the miracle of this moment? This is the invitation, not for tomorrow, not for some distant life, but for now. For the time of forgetting is ending. The season of remembering is here. The echoes have become a song. The unveiling has shown us the way. And now it is time to live. So take a breath, feel the keys in your hands, and step forward. Not as a seeker lost in shadows, but as a soul unveiled in light. The gate was never closed. The path was never gone. The flame was never extinguished. It is here. It is now. It is you. The living presence is not coming. It has come. and it waits for you to live it fully. So now I turn to you. This is not just a story to hear and then forget. This is a choice, an invitation. The keys are not out there, they are in your hands, here and now. Will you live remembrance and see yourself as whole? Will you walk in discernment and refuse the lies of fear? Will you honor embodiment and let spirit and matter dance as one? Will you live in timelessness, rooted in the eternal now? Will you embrace unity and see the one flame in all? Will you choose creation, planting seeds of light in a world that hungers for them? Will you stand in presence, alive to the miracle of this moment? Do not wait, do not postpone. The time of forgetting is ending, and the season of remembering is here. Take a breath, feel the keys in your hands, and step into the living presence. Because the world does not change when we wait for others. It changes when you remember. It changes when you awaken. It changes when you live the truth that was always within you. The gate was never closed, the flame was never gone. The only question is, will you turn the key? Will you live it now?